The vet's hands were shaking. He stepped back from the examination table, staring at the tiny black creature with eyes full of terror and awe. "Where did you find this?" he whispered. Amber thought she'd rescued an abandoned puppy from a parking lot. She had no idea what she'd actually brought home. Drop your location in the comments right now, and when this story ends, rate it from 0 to 10. Set? Let's dive in. The parking lot was nearly empty when Amber Peters stepped out of her beat-up sedan. She'd worked late shelving returns at the bookstore, and now the grocery store glowed like a lonely island in the darkness. The air hung heavy and silent, the kind of quiet that pressed against her eardrums. She moved quickly, grabbing what she needed. Milk, bread, instant coffee. The essentials of someone who lived alone and ate dinner at 9:30. As she loaded the bags into her trunk, she heard a sound so faint she almost convinced herself it was the hum of the overhead light. Something between a chirp and a metallic ring. Amber froze, her hand still gripping a grocery bag. There it was again. She turned slowly, scanning the asphalt. At first, she saw nothing. Then, beneath the flickering parking lot light, a tiny black shape trembled against the concrete. Her breath caught. It was no bigger than her palm, covered in glossy black fur that seemed to absorb the dim light around it. Oversized eyes, glassy and reflective like polished marbles, stared up at her with an eerie, unblinking stillness. The creature's body was impossibly fragile, its limbs tucked tight against its chest. "Oh, you poor thing," Amber whispered, her heart clenching. Someone had abandoned a newborn puppy. What kind of monster did that? She didn't hesitate. Shrugging off her jacket, she scooped the tiny creature into the fabric and cradled it against her chest. It clung to her shirt with surprising strength, burying its face in the warmth. During the drive home, she kept glancing down at it, whispering soft reassurances, but something felt off. It didn't whimper, didn't squirm. Its gaze was too focused, too intelligent for something so young, and the way it clung to her, it was as if it recognized her. "I'll call you Daisy," she murmured, stroking the soft fur with one finger. The creature shifted in her lap. Then it opened its mouth and let out a sound Amber had never heard from any puppy, a crystalline, ultrasonic chirp that vibrated through her chest like a tuning fork. Amber's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What had she just brought home? Amber's apartment was small but warm, filled with second-hand furniture and stacks of half-read books. She settled Daisy on the bathroom counter, running lukewarm water into the sink. The tiny creature didn't resist as Amber gently bathed her, washing away the grime from the parking lot. Her fur was softer than anything Amber had ever touched, like silk woven with shadows. "There you go, sweetheart," Amber whispered, wrapping Daisy in a towel. Back in the living room, she prepared a makeshift bed from an old shoebox lined with fleece, then warmed milk in the microwave. But when she offered the dropper, Daisy turned away. Amber tried water, mashed banana, even a tiny piece of cooked chicken. Nothing. "You have to eat something," Amber said, anxiously tightening her chest. Daisy simply watched her with those enormous eyes, tracking every gesture with disturbing precision. Over the next few hours, the strangeness intensified. Daisy moved with silent, fluid grace, no stumbling, no clumsiness. She glided across the hardwood floor like water, pausing at corners as if analyzing her surroundings. When Amber whistled while making tea, Daisy tilted her head and replicated the melody perfectly. Then the microwave beeps, the vibration of Amber's phone, each sound mimicked with uncanny accuracy. "That's impressive," Amber murmured, unsettled. Later, she carried Daisy to the window. Moonlight washed over the creature's fur, and Amber froze. A faint silvery glow radiated from Daisy's coat. When Amber stepped back under the lamp, Daisy's pupils contracted into sharp pinpoints. Amber laughed nervously. I really need sleep. She grabbed her journal and scribbled, eyes react weirdly to light. Fur glows in moonlight. Too tired to think straight. That night, as Amber drifted toward sleep, Daisy climbed onto her pillow. Through heavy eyelids, Amber glimpsed those luminous eyes in the darkness, watching, studying, waiting, unblinking. By the third day, Daisy had become something else entirely. She no longer seemed like a helpless creature. Her movements were deliberate, calculated. When Amber jangled her keys while searching for her phone, Daisy tilted her head and reproduced the sound exactly, metal clinking against metal, note for note. Amber stared. "How are you doing that?" Daisy chirped softly, as if pleased with herself. Stranger still was her reaction to everyday sounds. When the refrigerator hummed to life, Daisy perked up, swaying slightly as though listening to music. She responded to frequencies Amber couldn't even hear, her ears twitching at invisible rhythms. Then came the storm. Thunder rolled across Willow Creek, rattling the windows. Daisy began emitting high-pitched sounds, piercing, ultrasonic waves that made Amber's ears ring and her teeth ache. She clutched the tiny creature close, whispering reassurances, but Daisy wouldn't stop until the storm passed. That night, Amber scoured the internet. She searched puppy breeds, exotic pets, unusual animal behavior. Nothing matched. No species made sounds like Daisy. No puppy refused food for 3 days and survived. The next morning, bright sunlight streamed through the apartment. Daisy recoiled violently, clawing at Amber's sweater to burrow into darkness. Her tiny body trembled with what looked like pain. Amber grabbed her phone and recorded everything. The light sensitivity, the strange sounds, the eerie intelligence. "I'm taking you to a vet," she murmured. But before she could pack her bag, a motorcycle roared past the building, its engines screaming. Daisy went rigid in Amber's arms. Her eyes rolled back. Then she collapsed, her small body going limp. "Daisy, no, no, no." Amber's voice cracked. Daisy's breathing was shallow, labored. Her skin burned with fever. Amber snatched her keys and ran for the door, cradling Daisy against her chest. Dr. Jeremy Anderson's clinic was 15 minutes away. She prayed it wasn't too late. Dr. Jeremy Anderson had seen everything in his 20 years of practice: mangled strays, exotic birds, even a raccoon with a bottle stuck on its head. But when Amber burst through his clinic door, cradling the tiny black creature, something in his expression shifted. "She collapsed," Amber gasped. "She won't wake up." Jeremy gestured toward the examination table, his movements calm and practiced. He worked quickly, checking Daisy's vitals with gentle precision. But as the minutes passed, his confidence faltered. "Her heartbeat," he murmured, frowning. "The rhythm isn't right." Amber's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer. Instead, he carefully palpated Daisy's limbs, his brow furrowing deeper. "Her bones are too light, almost hollow, like—" He stopped himself. "Like what?" Jeremy shone a penlight into Daisy's eyes. The pupils contracted, but the reflection wasn't the typical green or gold of a dog. It was prismatic, refracting light in shades Amber had never seen. Dr. Anderson's face was drained of color. His hands trembled as he set down the light. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely steady. "Amber, where exactly did you find her?" "In a parking lot. Why? What's wrong?" "Has she reacted strangely to sunlight?" "Yes, but has she mimicked sounds? Specific sounds?" Amber's pulse hammered. "Yes. How did you know?" Jeremy stepped back from the table, running a hand through his hair. He looked at Daisy, then at Amber, then back at the creature as if trying to convince himself he was wrong. "Amber," he said slowly, This isn't a dog. The words hung in the air like smoke. She's a forestling. They were recorded in conservation studies decades ago in protected reserves upstate. But they were declared extinct 15 years ago. His eyes met hers, filled with something between awe and fear. This little one, she's a miracle. Amber couldn't breathe. Jeremy reached for his phone. I need to make some calls. Wildlife specialists, researchers. He paused. But Amber, you need to be careful. If word gets out, not everyone who comes looking will have good intentions. The news leaked within 48 hours. Amber never learned who talked to a clinic assistant, a researcher on Jeremy's call list, someone who overheard something they shouldn't have. It didn't matter. By the third day, Willow Creek was drowning in strangers. They came in rental cars and news vans, with cameras and notebooks and eager, hungry eyes. Researchers in khaki vests knocked on Amber's door at dawn. Journalists camped outside her building. Wildlife enthusiasts peered through her windows, trying to catch a glimpse. Miss Peters, just one photo. We're offering DNA analysis free of charge. Do you have any idea what you found? Amber stopped answering the door. She pulled her curtains shut and kept Daisy hidden in the bedroom, where the tiny creature trembled against her chest, chirping softly in distress. Dr. Anderson tried to help, issuing statements, deflecting questions, but even he couldn't control the chaos. The town buzzed with speculation. Some claimed they'd seen forestlings before. Others insisted Daisy was a hoax. Then came the man in the expensive suit. He appeared at her door one evening, calm and composed, offering a briefcase filled with cash. $50,000, he said smoothly. I represent private collectors who specialize in rare species preservation. Amber's blood turned to ice. She's not for sale. 100,000 then. She slammed the door in his face, heart hammering. Her hands shook as she locked the deadbolt. That night, Amber sat on her bedroom floor, Daisy cradled in her lap. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Maybe we should just leave. Go somewhere they can't find us. Daisy shifted, her small body tense. Then, without warning, she let out a piercing ultrasonic cry, a sound so sharp and desperate it vibrated through the walls. The ceramic mug on Amber's nightstand exploded into fragments. Amber stared at the shattered pieces, her breath caught in her throat. Daisy was suffering, and Amber didn't know how to save her. Dr. Elena Morris arrived quietly, slipping past the reporters with practiced ease. Jeremy had vouched for her, a conservation biologist who'd spent decades studying endangered species. She was older, with kind eyes and calloused hands that spoke of field work, not laboratory sterility. She examined Daisy with reverent care, her expression growing somber. She's beautiful, Elena whispered. I never thought I'd see one. Amber sat across from her, exhausted. What is she, really? Elena set down her instruments. Forestlings lived in the deep protected reserves upstate. They were incredibly rare, even before... She paused. They communicated through sound frequencies, ultrasonic patterns we couldn't fully decode. They required specific conditions to survive. High humidity, mineral-rich soil, natural acoustics from dense forest canopies. What happened to them? Illegal mining operations 15 years ago. The corporations moved in fast, tore through protected land before authorities could intervene. The forestlings' habitat was destroyed. We searched for survivors for years, but... Elena's voice cracked. We found none. They were declared extinct. Amber's throat tightened. So Daisy is possibly the last of her kind. The words hung heavy in the air. Elena leaned forward gently. Amber, I understand you care for her, but she needs more than we can provide here. There's a secure research facility with controlled environments. We could try to replicate her natural habitat, give her a chance to... No! Amber's voice was firm. She stays with me. Elena didn't argue. She'd seen the way Daisy clung to Amber, How the creature refused to eat unless Amber held her. How her chirps softened only at the sound of Amber's voice. That night, Daisy nestled against Amber's chest, emitting a soft, trembling chirp, almost like a question. Then her small body went limp. "Daisy," Amber's voice broke. "Daisy, please." But the creature didn't move. Her breathing had stopped. Jeremy worked frantically, administering oxygen, monitoring vitals. After 20 agonizing minutes, Daisy's tiny chest began to rise and fall again, shallow but steady. "She's stable," he said quietly. "For now." But over the next 2 days, Daisy's condition worsened. Car alarms triggered violent seizures. The fluorescent lights in Amber's apartment made her whimper and claw at her own eyes. She stopped responding to sounds, stopped mimicking, stopped everything that made her Daisy. Jeremy found Amber in the clinic waiting room, her eyes red and swollen. "Her body is shutting down," he said gently. "The environment here, the noise, the artificial light, the air quality, it's toxic to her. She needs what her species evolved for, the forest reserve. It's the only place she can survive." "No," Amber's voice cracked. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. I can't." Tears streamed down her face. "I can't just give her up." "You're not giving her up. You're saving her life." Amber buried her face in her hands, sobs racking her body. She felt a faint pressure against her palm. Daisy, barely conscious, crawling into her hands. The tiny creature nuzzled weakly against her thumb, emitting the softest chirp Amber had ever heard. It sounded like goodbye. Amber closed her eyes, her heart shattering. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." That evening, Amber packed a small bag with trembling hands. She folded the fleece blanket Daisy had slept on, tucked away the shattered pieces of the ceramic mug evidence of their strange, brief life together. She walked through her apartment one last time, memorizing the places where Daisy had perched, the windowsill where moonlight had made her glow, the pillow where those luminous eyes had watched her sleep. Elena waited outside with a specialized transport container. The journey to the forest reserve would take 4 hours. Amber cradled Daisy against her chest and stepped into the night. The highway stretched endlessly before them, headlights cutting through darkness. Jeremy drove while Elena monitored Daisy's vitals from the back seat. Amber held the tiny creature close, feeling each shallow breath against her palm. As the miles passed, something changed. Daisy's ears twitched. Her eyes opened wider. She let out a soft, curious chirp, the first sound she'd made in days. "She knows," Elena whispered. "She can sense it." Amber's vision blurred with tears. She remembered the parking lot, that first night when Daisy's glassy eyes had reflected the streetlight, the way she'd clung to Amber's shirt with surprising strength. The moonlight makes her fur glow, the ceramic mug shattering from her distressed cry. Every moment felt impossibly precious now. "We've got a problem," Jeremy said suddenly, eyes on the rearview mirror. A black sedan had been trailing them for the last 10 miles, maintaining a steady distance. "The collectors?" Amber's voice trembled. "Probably." Jeremy's jaw tightened. He signaled and took an unmarked exit. Turning onto a narrow back road flanked by dense trees, the sedan followed. Jeremy accelerated, navigating sharp curves with practiced precision. The sedan fell back, unable to match his speed on the winding roads. After 20 tense minutes, the headlights disappeared. No one spoke until they were certain they'd lost them. Dawn broke as they reached the Forest Reserve entrance. A weathered sign read, "Protected Wildlife Sanctuary, Restricted Access." Beyond the gate, the world transformed. Towering trees formed a cathedral of green. Mist clung to the undergrowth. The air hummed with life bird song, insect chatter, the whisper of wind through ancient branches. Daisy sat up in Amber's arms, suddenly alert. Her paws moved with strength Amber hadn't seen in days. She chirped not in distress, but in recognition. This was home. Amber's breath hitched, tears streaming freely now. She held Daisy tighter, knowing she was running out of time. Time to say goodbye. They walked deeper into the reserve, following Elena through paths unmarked by human feet. The forest grew denser, more ancient. And then they arrived. The forestling habitat was breathtaking. Bioluminescent plants pulsed with soft blue and green light, creating patterns that seemed to breathe. The canopy overhead formed natural acoustic chambers, amplifying the forest's symphony, water trickling over stones, leaves rustling in perfect rhythm, the earth itself humming with life. The air was thick with humidity, carrying the scent of minerals and moss. It was beautiful, surreal, alive. Daisy went rigid in Amber's arms. Her fur began to glow not faintly, but brilliantly fast, as if responding to some ancient call. She trembled, not from fear, but recognition. Conservation experts had prepared a soft mound of moss near a cluster of glowing fungi. Elena gestured gently. This is where she belongs. Amber's legs felt weak. She sank to her knees, cradling Daisy one final time. The tiny creature looked up at her with those enormous, luminous eyes. She chirped softly a sound that carried gratitude, understanding, and something that felt impossibly like love. You were never mine to keep, Amber whispered, her voice breaking. But you'll always be my little Daisy. Daisy pressed her head into Amber's palm, nuzzling weakly. Then Amber placed her on the mossy ground. For a moment, Daisy didn't move. She looked back at Amber as if asking permission. Go, Amber breathed. It's okay. Go home. Daisy took one tentative step, then another. Her movements grew steadier, stronger. The forest seemed to embrace her, the glowing plants brightening as she passed. And then she disappeared into the dense, shimmering foliage. Amber collapsed, sobs tearing through her chest. Jeremy knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders as she wept. Elena watched the spot where Daisy had vanished, her eyes glistening. Some rescues change a life, she said softly. But this one changed a species. Did Amber and Daisy's journey captivate you? Share your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell us what you think. Smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next story.